Oh, halftime show. Who did this chair like this? What are we doing here? This is why I don't like chairs, fellas. Right here. Right here. See, Gunner isn't here. Usually I blame the short guy. But Gunner's not here. So I got to go move these chairs around. Don't understand this. Don't know. Maybe I'll blame Tyler. I don't know. Why not? He's not here to defend himself. All right, here we go. Now we're kind of where, again, you look on the video stream, I'll go, oh my, this is a disaster. A disaster already. We just started. Let's blame Dave. He's off this week. All right, anyway. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird's here. Kale's here. We're going to roll this baby till 3 here on the game and get you ready for the post-game show. All right, Lamont Paris. Get ready to knock off some audio there, Ed Bird. Get the mouse ready. Lamont Paris talking to the media yesterday, and Tyler pulled the sound. Elijah went on over there, too, to cover it as well. Lamont, last time we left men's basketball, obviously the season was a huge disappointment / possible disaster. And then, with the help of what we heard from Jeremiah Donati, the athletic director, more resources, money, being pushed toward men's basketball. Now, Lamont went out and cracked the portal, and with 11 new guys with a portal and with recruiting, 11 new faces on this basketball team. And for me, personally, some of the moves I think are good. But I still have a question mark. It, to me, is the most important position on the floor when it comes to leader, floor general, quarterback, run the offense, get guys in the right position to score. And right now, as we look, and I hope I'm wrong, I still don't see the Talon Cooper on this roster. Now, Lamont will say, we're going to run the offense through multiple people. We're going to be a little diverse in how we do this thing on the offensive end of the court. Positionalist type of basketball, I guess. We'll see. I hope this works itself out. So here is Lamont. Let's start off with a self-reflection of just what happened last year in a gigantically disappointing 2024-2025. Hit it, Ed. 6, my friend. Self-reflection, cut 6. I'm loving it so far. Just keep hitting the button, Ed. Eventually it starts. That's the way it works sometimes. We'll get to it. We'll have that in a minute. Ed will tell me when it's ready. Obviously, the number one self-reflection is it didn't go well. And I go back, and it's not just point guard. It's just you did not have a Talon Cooper. You just didn't. And I think that started the whole thing sideways on the offensive end of the court, is we saw how much better the offense was and how much more efficient and effective when you had a true quarterback at the point, and that just didn't work out last year. You didn't have that pure pass first, run the offense point guard. So self-reflection by Lamont Paris, cut 6 on what happened last year.
Yeah, self-reflection and evaluation of what you've done is, I think it's so important in this profession, whether you won 26 games of teams, the overall ability of teams. I mean, I don't think it's any secret our conference was setting the trends in terms of NIL, the NIL market. And so not only were teams talented and not only were teams old, but they were talented and old with experienced guys within that system. So all these things happened at the same time. And so it's easy to look back and say, well, we didn't do this very well. Well, we didn't do that very well relative to this very unique group of teams that we had. So what you want to do is change a lot of things potentially, or evaluate whether you should change some of these things. But as I went back, I looked at our Arkansas game. I've watched that probably 3 times in the offseason, the last game that we played. And just for fun, if you ever have really nothing else to do, go back and look at that first half of that game and look at the quality of the situation that was generated in that game. Like, to a man, every single possession sans the turnovers. look what the possession actually looked like. And right, well, so what are you going to change in those scenarios? Well, the guy's got to catch the ball there. This guy's got to put that one in the basket. You get to the free throw line, you got to make those. Like, this is a wide open shot. So that process was a little more difficult this year than what it ever has been, because certainly you want to be open to changing all the things necessary to make the things happen that you want to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. Yes, okay, we got to get better. We got to get better. We got to get better at catching the ball and putting it in the basket. We got to get better offensively. We got to get better at all these things you need to get better at. And yes, then is it as simple as that in theory? Ta'Lon Cooper thrived in his role in the SEC as a pass first, run the offense, be the quarterback point guard. And I think the offense ran better. I'm old school with that. I think you need a point guard whose first job is to me, the formula that works for the point guard. I mean, Cooper also, he's shooting 45% from three, 48% from the floor, over 70% from the line, a little bit over 4 assists a game, like a turnover a game. Everything, just forget stats, but the eye test showed you that's the road. And last year, I'm sure Lamont Paris said, that's all right. With my system of offense and what we do, Thomas will be able to adjust and, incorporate himself into our offense to be what we need him to be. It just didn't work. It didn't. And Nick Pringle didn't consistently work. And then with the injury issues with, that you had with Miles Stute, now you had to ask Zach Davis to be more than he should be, or Jacoby Wright to be more than he should be, or even Morris Ugasuk. All of a sudden, you're asking guys to do more than they possibly are able to do at this point in their careers. So it's a multitude of things. And Lamont also, as he spoke to the media, get ready, Ed Bird, we're going to fire.
A combination of communication in some ways, just the proximity of being around each other more often and all the things. 2 years ago we had the trip to the Bahamas, which you can only do once every 4 years, the foreign tour, and that was extremely helpful for us. It afforded us 10 extra practices, but then more importantly than anything was just the time that we spent in transit, at the hotel. I think a couple of them were at the casinos from time to time, I heard, but I don't know how they did. But that kind of stuff is important for these guys, just to get to know each other, learn how to communicate with one another. That's a big part of it. In real, we talked about that today in today's workout. I think how to communicate with a person so that they receive. Kids change from generation to generation. I feel like the last 3 years, it's been 2 generations worth of change. Maybe that's just because I'm getting older. But anyway, so how you communicate, how you present something, how the message hits. And so they have to learn that also, because that's one area where there's room for a ton of growth with young people. I've learned this day is how the message that they want to get across actually sounds to the person receiving it and inspires them to take that information. So,
yeah, it's Lamont. There's a lot to unpack right there. Right, correct? Lamont's talking about getting these guys together and let them build chemistry by going to do this and that and the other. But the other part is, how does Lamont and his coaching staff communicate with the players? How do you motivate them? How do you get through to them? And it felt like what them to do. How do we communicate? How do we motivate? Obviously, we missed the mark last year. How do we get better at it? And one is you bring in, I'm not saying last year's crew wasn't the right kind of player for Lamont, because Lamont brought in a good amount of those guys. But maybe Lamont learned from last year, saying, okay, now I need to refocus on this is the type of player I need. It starts with that. You got to bring in the right type of player. And then you build upon the how do we communicate, how do we motivate, right? Like last year, really quick for an example. Here's just going from stats, the cold hard facts of last year offensively. You know what led the team in points scored? Colin Murray-Boyles. Rebounds? Colin Murray-Boyles. Assists? Colin Murray-Boyles. Steals? Colin Murray-Boyles. Blocks? Colin Murray-Boyles. Also turnovers? Colin Murray-Boyles. Highest field goal percentage overall? Colin Murray-Boyles. highest field goal percentage from inside the three-point line? Colin Murray Boyles. Think about all of that. It's great for Colin Murray Boyles. He showed off a lot of skills. He's going to be a first-round pick in the NBA draft. But for your offense and really your team dynamic, that's how much you relied on one dude. That's how much usage rate you had with one guy last year because of all these other things that just didn't work. I will continue on. Here's some more from Lamont Paris coming back. Meechie Johnson has returned. Lamont talks about Meechie this year compared to the last time Meechie was a Gamecock a couple of years ago. We'll hear that next from the men's head basketball coach. It's a halftime show. Ed Bird's here. Kale's here. If you got any kind of new equipment we can borrow to make our sound work better, please bring it to the radio station. We're here till 3 with the halftime show on the game. Men's Clinic of Central Pennsylvania here for you. You're a guy. You're getting older. You're frustrated. You're worried. You're concerned. You're angry. You don't do things as well as you used to, or you don't have the same passion or the same drive that you used to have in life in general. It might just be low testosterone, 803-875-MENS. Call the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Set up a free confidential consultation with Dr. Dan and the staff. If they think you could have low testosterone after you tell your story, they will do some lab work. If it does come back low T, then they will put you on a program, this is the very important part, that is designed for you, specifically you, to get you being back to you again. Everybody's different. Why should you have the same program? You shouldn't. 803-875-MENS, Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Go see Dr. Dan and the staff. It might be low testosterone. Get back to being you again. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out. We got Cale, Ed Bird. Dave's off this week, doing God knows what. We don't want to know. We've kind of voted here as a collective radio station. We don't want to know what Dave does when he's not here. Because really, I mean, Ed, if you think about it, A, then we become accomplices. Or B, we're going to have to testify against him. C, we're going to have to rat him out so we don't do time. This just goes down a bad road. So it's better not to know. But Dave will be back next week, we think. We hope. All right, so Lamont Paris hanging out with the media yesterday. We played a couple cuts already about reflecting on last year and looking at how he's going to build chemistry for this year with 11 new players. Let's get to cut 8 here, Ed. Meechie Johnson 2 years ago, in his second full season in Columbia, Meechie got moved off the ball. He basically played two guard as Talon Cooper took the point. Meechie occasionally would bring the ball up and kick the offense, but really Meechie was playing the two, the shooting guard. And Meechie was much more comfortable in a role that fit him. Because I just don't think Meechie is a full-time point guard. Well, the Meechie we saw 2 years ago was not a full-time point guard. Now Meechie is back after a year at Ohio State. And here's Lamont talking about Meechie this year versus the Meechie of 2 years ago. Again, cut 8, Ed.
It's hard to compare this year just to last year, but I will say, like, this guy he's been so excited about getting here and being here. I think as we all get older, we're more experienced and we're probably a little more in tune with what that means, whether that's you're in your first year of being a parent or your fifth year of being a parent. I think most people would probably say they do it differently 5 years down the road. Some may say I gave up 5 years later, but I think you're probably a little more seasoned at that. And so I think this is a guy that says, this was a great situation for me. I got a guy and a staff that believes in me totally. I have a fan base and a community that supports me totally, and I'm really excited about being back. I know what my role is already. I know what this is going to look like. I'm familiar with these things. I'm very comfortable with those things, and so I think he's probably a little more intentional about, from a leadership standpoint. He's intentional about it, but at the same time, it happens more naturally. So that's him. And then, I think that's probably more like compared to when he was here before. It was his second year here, and you're bringing in new pieces, and you're still. We had a lot of new faces coming in. You're still trying to prove some things. I think he's beyond that. I think at this stage, he's not trying to, I alluded to this, he's not trying to prove anything, not to anybody that matters in his basketball world and life, not to any of these people here. He'll be trying to prove that this team can win a lot of games is what he'll be trying to prove, but he's very comfortable, and he knows why he's back here, right? He knows why he came back here, and he knows why we wanted him back here, and he knows what his role is, and there's a comfort that comes with that, and just in how you move from day to day.
Yeah, I mean, there should be a comfort level for Meechie because of, been there, done that. And he played for Lamont, and he knows what Lamont expects. Now, again, I think Meechie will be, again, in a different role. Do I think Meechie's a starting point guard? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to configure the offense at this point. I mean, point guard, right? I mean, is it Meechie? Is it Eli Ellis? I've heard, and we'll hear Lamont talk about Mike Sheravamps, Mongolian Mike, the transfer portal addition from Utah. And the word is that, Mike will have the offense run through him at times. So we'll just see where this all goes. But, Meechie is one of the options, to run the show at the point. And Lamont really was talking more about the leadership of Meechie and what he has to prove. And no, Meechie should be very comfortable in his role when it comes to leadership. Michi brought a fieriness to this basketball team 2 years ago that I think was missing last year. Last year's team just didn't have that fire in them. You didn't have a guy who had that type of personality. Best player was Colin Murray-Boyles. Colin Murray-Boyles wasn't a fiery type of guy, very even-keeled dude, which is great. You never want to get too high and too low. I get it. But you also need a guy or two who's got some fire. And Michi will bring some fire back. So that's a good thing. All right, another newcomer, this guy coming from the high school ranks, much is being expected of Eli Ellis, the freshman. He is a point guard, but if you look at the scouting report of Eli Ellis, it'll say excellent shooter, can score, still working on getting his teammates involved. Again, that is a shooting guard playing the point, not a pure point guard. But can Eli Ellis become more of a well-rounded point guard during his time at South Carolina? Sure. But right now, that's the scouting report on Eli Ellis. Let's get cut three here, Ed Bird, as Lamont Paris talks about his freshman guard, Eli Ellis.
I mean, so far, I've seen Eli doing Eli stuff, and I say that in all the best ways. He's extremely competitive, incredibly competitive. That's probably the understatement of the year. And he does that in a way where he channels it in a manner that allows him to then be a productive player, a more productive player because of it. So he's a hard worker. For a young guy, he just is really confident in what he does. And so, like, offensively, he just, some guys, when they shoot, even when they shoot often, it seems like they're shooting a whole lot. He can, and this happens from time to time, some guys just can find a shot without searching for a shot, if that makes any sense. And so he's a very unselfish guy also, but he's confident in his abilities, and so just trying to get him to learn what we're looking for from an offensive, trying to generate offense for others, and then as a byproduct, there'll be plenty of offense for him as well.
Yeah, what Lamont said at the end, how to generate offense for others, that's the key for Eli Ellis. If you read the scouting report, you just heard it from Lamont. Guy can score, and I love hearing the idea about he's competitive. You want competitive dudes, obviously. And again, that's to the point of whether it's fire that you play with because you're so competitive, maybe an edginess to you. Again, not an edginess to go do dumb stuff, but an edginess to you that helps you, get to your best you, whatever it is. But, Eli Ellis, it feels like, is going to get his opportunity to go on the court as a freshman. And everybody talks about his ability to make buckets. Hopefully he can develop into more than just a guy that can make buckets, but a guy that can make his teammates better too if he's going to continue to play the point guard. So we'll see. But there's Lamont talking about Eli Ellis. All right, today's Tuesday, right, Ed? I lost track. Tuesday? All right. 2 days from now is Thursday, right? Am I good? All right. Thursday, we'll be at the Nest, noon to 3 on Gadsden and the Vista. We'll have, you can come in. First of all, the showroom is phenomenal. If you're thinking about doing anything to your home where it comes to new appliances, redoing some stuff in your kitchen, new fixtures, new lighting, new bathroom stuff, like maybe you want a tub, new plumbing, the place to come to is the Nest. The showroom's fantastic. 70 years of experience in that place. People know what's up. Also, we'll be giving you a chance to win some Gamecock football tickets, also Gamecock Clemson football tickets as well. So we'll have some fun tomorrow, noon to 3, hang out the Nest, and you'll have a chance to maybe score yourself some football tickets as well to a very, very anticipated 2025 football season. So that's the Nest. Thursday, noon to 3, we'll be hanging out there, Tyler and I, with the halftime show. Just in case you just woke up. Now, Ed, I'm going to break some massive rules here. Don't tell anybody. I'm going to have you and Kale, since you're on you guys are a little bit different in age. You guys look about the same age. But we're going to prove a point of generations here because the Oklahoma City Thunder, for as good as they are on the court, they have a problem. They don't know how to celebrate. They haven't got this whole celebration thing down, which involves champagne. which involves alcohol, which involves different generations. We're going to talk about that next, just in case you just woke up on the halftime show here on The Game. All right, just in case you just woke up, we have got a bunch of different stuff going on. We have a real good breaking news story for the football hour at 1 o'clock that just popped in college football. We're going to get to that here in a little bit. Just in case you just woke up and you missed a little NBA news, Drew Holiday has been traded by the Boston Celtics to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. Basically, for Boston, they love Drew Holiday. It's just Drew Holiday is owed around $72 million in 26-27 and 27-28. Trading Holiday saves Boston $40 million in luxury tax payments next season. And in return, Boston will get Anthony Simons, a guy who, I mean, he was a first-round pick, only 26 years old. Simons is a dude that he's a good three-point shooter. Not great, good, 38% above average three-point shooter. Half his shots are from three. To be fair, he's also a solid assist guy, 5 dimes a game and only 2 assists. So solid player. Assist-to-turnover ratio is good three-point shooter. And he'll fit in. Derek White's kind of taken the minutes in the backcourt as the main cog in the backcourt machine for Boston. Holiday had lost some minutes, but I love Drew Holiday because he's the ultimate winner. In his prime, one of the best two-way guards in the game. There's no look. It's not a coincidence that the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA title with Drew Holiday in the backcourt, and the Boston Celtics won the NBA title with Drew Holiday in the backcourt. Guy doesn't care about his stats. He cares about winning. He will chase you all over the court on defense, offensively. He's a good, solid offensive player. And again, Portland's not ready to win. Matter of fact, most of the Trailblazers, the Trailblazer organization can't spell winning if you gave them the W, the I, and the N. But Drew Holiday's a winner. Now, we'll see where this goes with Holiday going to Portland. There's nothing that I've seen that says that they're just going to package him right up and move him again like they did a few years ago. But Holiday is now in his 17th NBA season. And, again, still a good defender. So that was a trade just made in the NBA today, just in case you just woke up and missed that baby. Also, I got to get this out of my system. The New York Knicks are interviewing Minnesota Timberwolves assistant Micah Nori for the team's head coaching job. The Knicks have done 3 formal interviews. Micah Nori's coming in, 2 former head coaches, Mike Brown and Taylor Jenkins. This is after the Knicks were turned down by 3 or 4 other teams because the Knicks wanted permission to talk to other teams' head coaches. And the other teams went, screw you guys. What are you going to give us for our head coach? You're going to give us a lot, or we're not talking, or we're not going to let you talk to him. The Knicks' strategy in looking for a new head coach, I'll be nice, clunky. I won't get an FCC fine for saying clunky. Clunky. It felt like their plan was to go poach Jason Kidd or some other head coach from a successful organization. That was plan A, which was a not very smart plan. And now it hasn't worked. Now they're going to their plan B. They interviewed Mike Brown and Taylor Jenkins, 2 guys who have been fired. Mike Brown's been fired multiple times. And now they're talking to an assistant in Micah Nori that some people hold in high regard. Look, it doesn't matter if you get it right. You know how this goes. You can have the weirdest, most asinine coaching search ever, but if it lands you a really good head coach, everybody says, wow, great job, guys. That's all that matters. Like, for an example, when Pete Carroll was hired by Southern Cal to be their head football coach, I mean, you heard rumors of like 10 different guys, and then all of a sudden they hired this former NFL head coach who got canned in New England, and you're like, what? That turned out really well, so Mike Garrett, the AD at the time of Southern Cal, looked all shrewd and sharp and smart, right? If you hire the right guy, no one cares how you get there. But right now, the Knicks, this looks like it's got the fingerprints of owner James Dolan all over it. Fire Thibodeau! Why? Because I said so. I'm the owner. Now I got to go play in my rock band. because it felt like the Knicks didn't have a plan, or the plan was go just ask permission of other teams if we can talk to their coach, because if we get one, that's the one we'll hire. And it's been a weird search, and the Knicks still don't have a head coach. And usually when you fire your head coach, you better have plan A, B, and C. Just saying. You better have plan A, B, and C. It felt like the Knicks had no plan. Just the whole plan was fire the coach. And that was it. So we'll see where that goes. All right. So one last thing. And I will give the folks on the early game, Tyler and Preston and Jen, credit for starting this. And I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting study real quick. The Oklahoma City Thunder. They won the NBA championship. So on the court, obviously an excellent basketball team with a ton of potential to win more titles as time goes on. In the locker room, not great at celebrating. Obviously not the partiers that other NBA people are. Get me cut 21, Ed Bird. This is on the Bleacher Report, kind of describing the Oklahoma City Thunder's locker room after the postgame celebration or during the postgame celebration. Again, cut 21, Ed.
You've probably heard the Thunder were the youngest NBA champion in over 40 years, but it really showed when they walked into the locker room for the post-game celebration, saw the champagne bottles, and nobody knew how to open them. Normally, this scene is like a rager for other champions, where champagne goggles are fully necessary, but not these young Thunder. To start, they had to get a lesson from 31-year-old Alex Caruso, the only previous champion on the roster, on how to even pop a bottle of champagne. And you saw a few guys then figure it out and start spraying the bottles, but as Isaiah Hartenstein said, it really wasn't in sync, as some of the guys were still trying to figure out how to do it. Even reporter Rachel Nichols, who was in the locker room, said she only saw about 8 empty bottles on the floor, when normally after a championship celebration, there's empty bottles littered all over the floor. We also saw one of the Jalen Williams seemingly try his first sip of beer ever, which he was not impressed by, and then the other Jalen Williams admit that he himself had just consumed his first drink ever too. Chet Holmgren even mispronounced the Michelob Ultra sponsored goggles, calling them Michelob. And look, they're so young. The average age of their starters was right at 24 years old, so they still have a lot of career left in them. And if they get back to this point, as many expect they will, it'll be funny to look back at how young and wholesome they were when they won their first championship.
Hey, now stop. These guys are in their 20s. Okay? These guys are in their 20s. Typically, once you got in your 20s, and look, this is not a criticism, I'm just enjoying this because it is wholesome and so different. Typically, by the time you're in your 20s, I mean, let's face it, you're shotgunning grain, right? All right, so here's Jalen Williams talking about drinking Shirley Temples and his first experience with alcohol. Cut 23, Ed Bird.
Okay, so yeah, like yesterday was my first time drinking ever. Like I never had a drink up until that point. And the beginning of the season, the guys want me to drink. That's like the big thing for them. I don't know why, but I told the beginning of the year, I was like, win a championship, I'll drink. I'll do whatever you guys want. I'll drink champagne. We could do shots. So we kept getting closer during the season, and I was like, I'm going to have to drink. So I drank a little bit. I had a couple shots, champagne. I had beer. It was all disgusting. I'm going to stick to Shirley Temples. I had a lot of those yesterday and a lot of water.
Okay, so you've never drank it before. You think champagne is disgusting. You think all shots are disgusting, so are you never going to do it again?
I'm retired. I can't speak on the parade, though. I don't want to.
Okay, so TBD.
All right, so anyway, I think this is great. His first time ever drinking was celebrating an NBA championship in his, was he 23, 24, Jalen Williams? First time I drank, 14 years old, behind Skateland. Ready? Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill. And then the second foray was Mad Dog. 14 behind Skateland. When I get back, I want to do an interesting psychological study. We'll have a Firehouse Subtext hour. We have young Kale in here who just graduated college from the University of South Carolina. We have Ed Bird who just turned 100. We're going to get their perspectives on their first experience with alcohol. And I'm going to ask Kale, is this your generation? Are you guys like not down with booze in general? I am so interested in this. I need to find out this next. Also get our Firehouse Subtext the hour on the halftime show here on The Game. All right, we'll get our Firehouse Sub text the hour in, hopefully, at 803-404-6100. All right, but we kind of played the sound of the Oklahoma City Thunder. A bunch of young players, second youngest team ever to win the NBA championship by average age. Only the 76-77 Portland Trail Blazers were younger. Bill Walton's crew that won the NBA championship. So we played a couple of cuts. Bleacher Report talking about these guys didn't know how to open champagne. They're sipping like booze for the first time. They're all making that booze. Every time anybody that drank beer for the first time, you make that face. You make that face. Oh my God, this tastes terrible. So they were making the face. They didn't know how to open the champagne. Chet Holmgren's mispronouncing Michelob. He's calling it Michelin or whatever. So I just thought it'd be interesting. We got our buddy Kale, who is in his, 23, coming up on 23, right, soon?
Yeah, I turned 23 in August.
You want to turn him up there, Ed Bird, real quick? You turned 23 in August?
Yeah, 23 in August.
All right, and then we have Ed Bird, who's not 23.
Yes, I am.
Well, your shirt's 23. I will start with you, Ed. Remember the first time you ever drank?
Oh, yeah.
How old?
Oh, yeah.
How old?
I don't know. Well, they can't arrest me now.
No, it's over. Statute of limitations is gone.
It was about 13.
13?
Yeah.
Where we at?
Well, my dad let me have you. He passed the beer. Take a sip.
Take a sip?
Yeah, well, little did he know that, he leaves them open in the refrigerator. I'd been doing that for years.
My uncle, I'll tell you this really quick. My uncle Boyd, on my mom's side, my Uncle Boyd would wake up in the morning, and first thing he'd do was grab a old Milwaukee 16-ounce pounder, 7 o'clock in the morning, he'd crack it open, put salt in it,
I mean,
and then drink it.
You drink that early in the morning?
He did.
I can do coffee and barely do that early in the morning.
Same here. The idea of drinking beer at 7:30 in the morning, even to this day, but he wouldn't. He'd take a matchstick and clean out his ear. He was quite the catch for my aunt.
Yeah.
All right, young Kale, you weren't 13.
No, I was 19.
19.
Yes.
And give me your quick experience. Don't give any names of things, but just what was your first experience?
Yeah, so me and two of my buddies, I went out of town to visit one of my buddies at the school he went to. I was 19. It was before I transferred to USC. I was at community college. We go out because my buddies are like, yeah, like there's a party going on tonight, whatever. And I'm like, I've never really been to a party, so I'm like, okay, I've never really drank either, so yeah, I'll go. I had a few drinks. We go to this party. It starts at a house, then it moves out to a club. Having a great time. It's like 3:30 in the morning. Or we were walking out, this girl that we've been talking to, she very, very
drunk.
Yes, yeah, sure. I didn't know if I could say that on the air.
Very drunk.
Yeah, but let's just say she passes out. We have to try to wake her up because her friends left her. And, she starts throwing up in the grass. And then a car pulls into the parking lot of where we're at. And gunshots start going on.
Oh
no!
There's a party.
That's a party.
So that's your first experience ever of going out and drinking. Was ready? Drunk girl almost throwing up on him, and then somebody shooting gunshots.
Yeah.
So that's the last day you ever drank, right?
Of course not. Definitely not.
I'll ask you this really quick because it's just different generation stuff. Typically, Ed Bird's generation, mine, you started younger. Everybody was trying to, grab booze. You were 19 when you first started. Now you're 23. Do you see your generation? They're not the. Are they? Is this the thought? Is they're not the drinkers that the other generations were? Do you agree? Or do you think that's just a stereotype that's not true?
I think it's kind of a stereotype. I mean, there's obviously a bunch of people that you'll come across that say that it just choose not to, and I have come across a few of those. But when I got to Carolina my junior year, everybody was still
hitting
IDs.
it. They were still hitting
Everyone that was of age, including me, was going out.
All right, cool. 13 with the old man.
Oh,
nice job, Ed Bird.
Yeah,
nice job. All right, Kale, appreciate it. Ed, appreciate it. All right, nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour. Breaking recruiting news. There's a school spending some serious dough. They're not playing around. We'll get to that next here on the halftime show here on The Game. All right, 1 o'clock. We yap nothing but football, football, and more football. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Very, very interesting news coming out of Provo. BYU has picked up one of their biggest recruits ever. We're talking about the college football program. Consensus five-star quarterback Ryder Lyons is committed to the Cougars. And we'll get the audio here in a few minutes from the Pat McAfee show. Lyons was ranked the number 5 quarterback and 19th overall recruit in the country. Chose BYU over Oregon, Southern Cal, Ole Miss, and more than 20 other Power 4 programs. 2024 California Gatorade Player of the Year. Lyons threw for over 3,000 yards, 46 touchdowns as a junior at Folsom High, and also ran for almost 600 yards and 15 more scores. Greg Biggins of 24/7, his quote, Lyons an exceptional talent, has been one of the top quarterbacks in the region since his sophomore year. Accurate on all 3 levels, throws a deep ball very well. With touch, can rip fastballs into tight windows. Equally dangerous when a play breaks down, he can improvise off script. Now, Lyons will not play until 2027 because he plans to serve a Mormon mission before enrolling in BYU. Once he does arrive in Provo, a lot of people think he'll be ready pretty much to rock and roll. So that's the plan with Lyons, with Ryder Lyons. Now we have it here's Lyons with his announcement of where he's going to play on the Pat McAfee show. Hit it, Ed.
What does the future look like for you, Ryder? Where will you be playing football next?
I mean, for the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be going to Brigham Young University.
Okay, go Cougs! Hey, Ryder. Congratulations, Ryder Lyons, heading over there to beautiful Utah with BYU.
Yes, sir.
And the Cougars, who were 11-2 last year. Coach Kalani Sitake obviously been there, a staple for BYU football for a long time.
I mean, yeah, look, BYU's not playing around. Let's be honest. They are, look, if you've ever spent any time out in the West, BYU, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is a financial powerhouse, even more than you would think. They are just, they do actually, I think, print their own money. They're not messing around. Financially, they are a behemoth in the western part of this country. And they are all over the West. It's not just Utah. It's Idaho. It's Washington State, California, Oregon. The reach of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is large out west. Large. And they have unlimited financial power. And they're saying, you know what, we ought to start using that on sports because we kind of want to win. They have the number 1 recruit in men's basketball in 2025 coming to BYU. And now they have a 5-star quarterback who's top 20 in the country going to BYU, obviously using the money machine in the basement of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But they're not messing around. BYU will be a player in the NIL collective game moving forward. And there's just another example. So BYU, Ryder Lyons will be playing his college football once he comes back from his mission at BYU. We talk a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Ed Bird, I sent you a few cuts. You got them there ready for me there, buddy? Good deal. Obviously a big recruiting weekend for South Carolina this past weekend. Wes Mitchell, our buddy from Gamecock Central, the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour here on the game, along with Chris Clark, jumped on with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show yesterday around 3:30 and gave his overall thoughts on the recruiting weekend. Let's get the Wes Mitchell cut, Ed Bird, about his thoughts of how the recruiting weekend with all the visits went for South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is one of those things you ultimately are going to judge it in the next maybe month or so. Where do these prospects end up at? Because a lot of them will be making decisions in the next few weeks. coming out of the visit, I think this past weekend is maybe one of the better official visit weekends that they've had in a while, just because I think they're in a good position. You know, you look at 9 official visitors and then a 10th visitor in Landon Duckworth, who came back unofficially. I don't know. They've really helped themselves with maybe 8 of them in terms of exiting the trip, feeling pretty good about where they sit right now. There's always a little bit of that post-visit high, post-visit where a guy's just kind of buzzing about the place he was just at. So we'll see where things are when it levels out a little bit. But yeah, all 3 weekends have been circled to an extent, but this final weekend that just took place has definitely maybe been circled with a little bit thicker marker going into it.
All right, so Wes thinks it was an excellent weekend. South Carolina improved their chances with multiple possible recruits. And look, the one thing that you hear this all the time about what goes on with these official visits and just how much these recruits walk away from their visit here in Columbia just impressed with the vibe and the culture of South Carolina football, what they do under Shane Beamer with the assistants, with the players on the roster, the whole program. Food was terrible. Players were nasty to me. Somebody almost ran me over on Gervais. No one's ever going to do that, but what you do hear from people who aren't connected to the university or have any skins in the game is like, yeah, South Carolina does a really good job on official visits with recruits. They really do it up nice. Shane gets so crazy with this thing. Let's get this one cut. Ed Bird, cut 14. Jazavian Currents was doing his official visit over the weekend, and Shane gave old Jazavian the old WWE intro. Cut 14, Ed.
USA, that is Rock Hill, South Carolina. He hails from South Point High School. A long list of Gamecocks that have come from his high school. Some of the greatest ever: Stephon Gilmore, Jadeveon Clowney, Devontae Holloman, on and on. And this is the next one, and maybe the best one of them all. I've been told by him, he's so good, I've got to introduce him by multiple names. He goes by J5. He goes by Fat J. He goes by Fat. And he won Rambo. That's it, Rambo. Please put your hands together and welcome defensive back Jazavian Curry.
I love it. There you go. They're having fun. They're doing WWE. They're all getting kooky and crazy. And it just seems like the official visits at South Carolina from people who, again, know what's up and are objective about it, Shane and the whole crew do a great job. All right, one of the players that is obviously being focused on is Landon Duckworth. High four-star quarterback from the state of Alabama. It's down to South Carolina and Auburn. Chris Clark, yesterday on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, along with Tyler and Wes, talked about the recruitment and where it's at right now with Duckworth. Hit it, Ed.
Highly anticipated visit here because, we are now in a dead period. So there are lots of prospects that South Carolina is recruiting. Just as a general point here before we dive into Landon and I'm sure other guys that are either have decisions set for this summer or are heavily considering deciding this summer. And so even though we're in a dead period for this last week of June and then throughout July, this is going to be a huge, critical month for South Carolina. So what that means for Landon, who has discussed making a choice in July, this may have been the last visit of his entire process. He's already taken his official to South Carolina. He's already taken an official to Auburn. He's taken unofficials to both those programs multiple times. He canceled a couple other officials. So this was, for all intents and purposes, the last at bat, and the Gamecocks got it. And I think I brought this up last week when we were talking about it, but someone on our podcast for Gamecock Central brought up the point, well, what could they show Landon that he hasn't seen before? And the answer is you're not showing him anything. Check out this new room or this thing you haven't seen. It's really an opportunity to get him around the staff again. You always want to make these guys feel like they're already a part of the program. And you get the sense of that a little bit. When we were at the last camp day, Landon comes out, enters the indoor facility while camp's going on, the 7-on-7, and immediately there's a bunch of staffers around him. You know, Beamer, Mike Shula, a bunch of the recruiting support staff. They're all around him and his mom, you know, showing him love. And so that's always a good thing. And then there's a chance to have any final questions answered. Maybe some things you're not, you know, yeah, you can talk on the phone, you can DM, you can email. But having face-to-face conversations that are real conversations just about the future or anything that you may have. And so my understanding is they were able to get that done this weekend in terms of just having that final look. And something could always change. You know, Landon could come out and say, hey, look, I need more time. I don't want to decide in July anymore. He hasn't set a date firm, but that's kind of the target expectation. And so, look, I liked where South Carolina stood going into his last unofficial visit to Auburn 2 weekends ago. I think the Gamecocks were able to survive that. And then obviously they got him back on campus and around some other guys that he knows well and around the staff again. I think good vibes on Landon Duckworth, who had a nice showing out at the Elite 11 and is regarded as one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
All right, so you hear Chris Clark talking about Landon Duckworth doing the unofficial visit this past weekend. Duckworth he has done his official to South Carolina. He's done his official to Auburn. Unofficial to South Carolina, unofficial to Auburn. Duckworth's, you know, he's getting as much intel and getting feel and vibe as much as he can for both programs. I'm looking at Auburn sports as they are, you know, with a post about Landon Duckworth. And, you know, we talked about this, was it yesterday, with Jackson Arnold, who looks like the starting quarterback at Auburn. Another part of this is Deuce Knight, another highly recruited quarterback, elite quarterback in the 2025 class who's going to Auburn. So if you're Duckworth and you're looking about, look, I get it. You want program fit. Are the dudes cool? Can these guys get me to the NFL? Are they going to win games? All those things. But you also want, I don't know, call me crazy, playing time. Because you can't do all those other things if you can't get on the field. And if you're looking at the rooms, Auburn, Jackson Arnold was a former 5-star guy. Deuce Knight, elite recruit coming in, 5-star, high 4-star, depending on what you looked at. So you got those guys in the Auburn quarterback room. At South Carolina, you have Lennar Sellers, you have Aaron Nolan, Cutter Woods. And if you're Landon Duckworth, you're saying, okay, Auburn's got these guys who are highly thought of and recruited coming in. None of those guys right now, I mean, look like they're one-and-doners, so to speak. Then you look at South Carolina. If Lennar Sellers plays to the level everyone hopes and thinks he will play to, he will move on to the NFL draft. Then you have Aaron Nolan, who is a high 4-star kid. Cutter Woods, 3-star. A lot of people think Woods is undervalued. So you look at those two rooms, it feels like the path to playing time would be South Carolina. If Sellers plays the way he should, he goes off to the NFL draft. Now, if you're Landon Duckworth, you come in as a freshman, your thought is maybe I can even get on the field as a freshman because they have Aaron Nolan and they have Cutter Woods. And, of course, South Carolina can always hit the portal and get a veteran and let all these guys, you know, cook and percolate for another year. But if you look at the two rooms, it almost feels like the pathway would be quicker to get on the field of South Carolina than it would be at Auburn. Because, look, Jackson Arnold, there's no guarantee Jackson Arnold's going to do it 1 year and hit the NFL at all. And then you have Deuce Knight, whose expectation is also start in 2 years. So anyway, that's the latest on that. All right, we'll pop back in as we talk nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Interesting list of coaches. What coach that hasn't won a national title is in the best position to win one this year? We'll talk about that next here on the Halftime Show as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour on The Game. All right, we're talking a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Go back to the Landon Duckworth thing really quick. As I was reading Auburn Sports, their rival site, a couple things. Even the Auburn site says that some believe South Carolina is the team to beat on Duckworth right now. His decision expected sometime in July. Also, Auburn is chasing another quarterback, Travis Burgess. Burgess committed to North Carolina in May, and he picked the Tar Heels over Auburn and NC State. Burgess only took an official visit to North Carolina, so the Auburn folks are hoping that Burgess can pop on campus or took an official visit to North Carolina, I should say. So again, Auburn is also chasing Travis Burgess, not just Landon Duckworth. So just a little background there. And again, even the Auburn site says that there are folks who believe that South Carolina right now is the front runner. All right, we Yap Football in the 1 o'clock hour, again, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Interesting little post. Athlon Sports ranking the top 10 coaches who can win their first national championship in 2025. It's not so much to do the countdown, but we'll just take a look at the list with the interesting names on the list and who, to me, has the most believable chance. There's a couple in here. I'm not down with. I'm not down with Sharon Moore at Michigan. Yeah, they got Bryce Underwood, the big time quarterback recruit. But again, he's played as many games as me. He's a freshman. No guarantee that he's going to pop and be great, especially his freshman year. Every now and then you have a freshman who goes, wow, but usually they need a year to get their footing. And I just don't know what I think of Sharon Moore. Just because he was sitting around, hanging out with, Jim Harbaugh doesn't mean Sharon Moore is going to be a good head coach. I feel like Michigan put Moore in place because he was on Harbaugh's staff and they wanted to keep the continuity. But there's nothing to me that says Sharon Moore is going to be a head coach that has a chance to win a national title. Even under this, it was interesting that, their reason, they really didn't have reasoning. They just were like, yeah, Michigan, Moore has all the tools to succeed at Michigan. Okay. What does that mean? Other coaches on this list, Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Tennessee has the resources to, yes, compete for a national championship. Absolutely. And Heupel has been successful, more successful than I thought he was going to be at Tennessee, to be fair to Josh Heupel. The recruiting thing, which a lot of people thought would be Heupel's problem at Tennessee, well, guess what? Money solves a lot. You're always better looking when you got a lot of money, Ed Bird, just saying. You're always funnier, cuter. Josh Heupel has been swimming in a lot of NIL collective money to help his recruiting abilities. So in the world we live in now, could I see Tennessee win a national championship under Josh Heupel? Absolutely. Kalen DeBoer almost won one at Washington. Could he win one at Bama? Duh, yeah. Kalen DeBoer absolutely could win a national championship at Alabama. That's an easy one. Can Brian Kelly win one at LSU? Well, again, not to be mean, if Ed Orgeron can win a national championship at LSU, Brian Kelly can. If Les Miles can win a national championship at LSU, Brian Kelly can. Yes, that's the answer. Yes. Steve Sarkisian, to me, on this list is the number one guy. And yes, I have apologized to Steve Sarkisian over and over again. What Sark has done at Texas, I just didn't think he could do it because I didn't see him do it at UW or Southern Cal. But Steve Sarkisian, again, he rubbed up against Nick Saban enough at Alabama, learned a lot of what a lot of Nick's ways, and he took it to Texas. And Sark's been phenomenal at Texas. With the recruiting ability of Sarkisian, with how he has pushed all the cooks out of the kitchen there to be the true commander of that program. You see the results the last couple years. Look, I'll say this. This Arch Manning hype makes me laugh, but I'll be honest with you. I think Arch Manning's going to be really good. Better than Quinn Ewers. I just believe that. I think Arch Manning is going to be a really good quarterback. First team All-American good, I don't know about that, but I think Arch Manning is going to be better than Ewers. And I think Texas could win a national championship with Arch Manning. I do. I think they're a talented crew, both sides of the ball. That's a guy on this list I think has the biggest opportunity. The other guys on this list, James Franklin, they made the college football playoff last year finally because they expanded the tournament. I don't know if James Franklin's a national championship winning head coach. I really don't. I think he's good. I think Penn State will be in the college football playoff. I think they'll have a lot of double-digit win seasons. I just don't know if Franklin's a guy that's going to pull a national championship. The Dan Lanning, number 3, look, I'm not trying to be mean about Dan Lanning. Seems like a nice guy. He's going to be a good dude to knock beers with. But what has Dan Lanning done? He was the number 1 seed last year in the college football playoff, and they got punched in the throat by Ohio State. I'm not ready to mark Dan Lanning as a guy to win a national championship. Maybe he will. It's only been, a couple years for Lanning. Same thing with Marcus Freeman. I don't know. I'm not ready to say Marcus Freeman's on the cusp of winning a national champion. No, not really. I think what Marcus Freeman did last year at Notre Dame was phenomenal. But you got to stack it. I don't know if that was just an outlier. We'll see. Can he have consistency? Can Notre Dame compete on the ultimate level consistently? We'll find out. I'm not down with Mario Cristobal. He's number 7 on this list. No. You saw it last year. Cristobal had, a phenomenal quarterback, talent on both sides of the ball, and Miami found a way to fail. So I don't know, not with Cristobal. And I'm going to say it's about Lane Kiffin. I like Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin's a really good head coach. Lane Kiffin last year, for the first time, truly had real expectations heaped on him at Ole Miss, and they underachieved. Just saying. I don't know if Lane Kiffin will ever win a national championship unless they sneak up on everybody, because it feels like that's where Lane's at his most comfort, especially at Ole Miss. Maybe as Lane moves on and continues to get a little older, even more experience. Maybe last year okay, that was my first year being the hunted. Now I know what I'm going to do different when I become the hunted again. And maybe Lane will learn from it and then be able to handle the expectations and go win a national championship. But after what I saw last year, Ole Miss should have been in the college football playoff last year. One of the most talented rosters in America, couldn't get it done. So I don't know if I want to be ready to stamp Lane Kiffin as a guy that can win a national championship at Ole Miss. But that's the list. I thought it was very interesting. Then they had the next tier. Shane Beamer was the top guy on the next tier, along with Brett Bielema, Curt Cignetti at Indiana, Bielema, of course, at Illinois, Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, Mike Elko, Texas A&M, Billy Napier at Florida, Matt Rule, Nebraska, Lincoln Riley, Southern Cal. I get why some of those names are on that list. Out of them, I'm hoping Shane continues to move forward with this momentum that South Carolina built last year and one day does win a national championship. That'd be phenomenal. Brett Bielema, I don't know. I think Brett Bielema's a good coach. I don't know if he's a coach that's ever going to win a national championship. Curt Cignetti, it's too early. Cignetti, very successful at Group of 5 level. Got Indiana to the playoff last year. Let's see what he can do now that there's a little bit more expectation for him in Bloomington. I think Kenny Dillingham could be a star at Arizona State, but again, too early. One really good year. Mike Elko at A&M. I just think there's something about A&M. I think Mike Elko's a good coach. A&M gets a ton of talent. They have a lot of money. But for some reason, the football gods like to squat on them and say, nope, you're just going to be 8-win A&M. But obviously, everything is in place for Mike Elko to win a national championship at A&M. Billy Napier at Florida, I don't think so. Again, I know everybody wants to get all happy about Napier after last year ending on a 3-game win streak. I'm not ready for that yet. And Matt Rule in Nebraska, sure. Matt Rule has won on a high level at Baylor, at Temple. Nebraska's got a ton of resources. Could it happen for Matt Rule? Yeah, it could. And Lincoln Riley at Southern Cal, it should happen, to be fair. That's why Lincoln Riley was brought to L.A., win a national championship. Right now, Lincoln Riley it's been underwhelming. Everybody says Southern Cal's ready to pop now. Everything's in place. Well, we'll see. But Lincoln Riley should win a national championship at Southern Cal. All right, we'll pop back in here on the halftime show as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We will hear from Josh Pate, his thoughts on South Carolina possibly being a wild card dark horse to win the SEC. And Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema has beef with coaches. We'll hear what Brett Bielema has to say about that next here on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird, Kale's here too, till 3 on the game. All right, we yap a ton of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Obviously, we're in the talking season, full bore talking season. SEC Media Days coming up July 14th to 17th, I believe. It's South Carolina Day on July 14th, that Monday with Shane. Obviously, we will be there. Elijah and Jay and myself and Tyler are going to roll off to SEC Media Days. We're all going to stay at Tyler's house. We made up our mind. We're just going to bum rush Tyler's parents' house and just take over for 4 days. I'm sure they would love that. What a crew that would be. Sure, if Tyler's parents call the cops quick. So we will be there for that. Josh Pate will also be there from CBS. Josh Pate, of course, doing his video stream podcast. Let's get cut 16 in here, Kale. Josh Pate was talking about teams that could be wild cards to possibly win the SEC. He brought up South Carolina and Missouri. Hit it there, Kale.
I would put South Carolina in there. I would put Missouri in there. But the question was teams that are dark horses, kind of wild cards to win the league. And I could be wrong here, and I give those guys over at South Carolina full permission to use this internally. I don't want this in any hype video that goes public. But I don't know if South Carolina can win the SEC. At their best, I don't know if they can win the SEC. I don't know if they backfilled at wide receiver good enough. I don't know what the running back position is there because I don't know the situation with whether guys are going to be eligible or not. They lost a lot of good defensive talent too. So the same thing with Missouri. The schedule's favorable. If Bo Prabula pans out at quarterback, really love the addition they made at running back. I always love Eli Drinkwitz's teams to be very sneaky good. Are they good enough to win the league? I didn't put them in that classification, so that's why I didn't include those as wildcard teams.
All right, so that's Josh Pate. Look, I get what Pate is saying about the Gamecocks. I mean, he's not the first person to say, lost a ton on defense. Yep, absolutely. No doubt. And you've got guys that have come in through the portal who have high ceilings, who have been, they were highly recruited guys who just haven't popped on the collegiate level for one reason or another. Either it was a numbers game at the school they were at, injuries, whatever. It just hasn't worked yet. But they are high ceiling players. But they've all got to hit their ceiling, right? And I understand the thought of what's going to happen at the running back position. Is Faison going to be eligible or not? And at wide receiver, you got three guys coming back that you are hoping in their, Nick Harbor's his third year. It's Brown's second year. And it's Bennett's second year. But they all, in some way, shape, or form, started last season. And they had moments last year where they were very productive, all three. Can those three put it together? We'll see. And schedule-wise, Pate brought up Missouri's schedule. We look at South Carolina's, and we've gone over this. Virginia Tech, South Carolina will be favored. South Carolina State, obviously South Carolina will be favored. Home against Vandy, obviously South Carolina will be favored. At home against Kentucky, South Carolina is going to be favored. At home against Oklahoma, that's going to be interesting to see. Probably South Carolina will be favored. Slight, but that could happen. Coastal Carolina, South Carolina's favored. And we'll see what goes on with the Clemson game. On the road, you're probably not going to be favored at Missouri or LSU or Ole Miss or A&M. And this is not just South Carolina. So many teams have question marks now because of just the nomadic world that college athletics has become. I mean, Alabama, Alabama, there's a good chance they'll be favored coming to Williams-Brice. Who knows about the quarterback position? Think about that. Yes, Kalen DeBoer and his OC, Mr. Grubbs, they've been quarterback whisperers in the past. Look what they did for Michael Penix Jr. at Washington. But Ty Simpson, we'll see. Or somebody else, we'll see. Ole Miss has a question mark at quarterback with Austin Simmons. Again, Lane Kiffin. Seems like, Lane Kiffin has no problem developing quarterbacks collegiately. But there's a question mark at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss lost a ton of talent, too. So everybody's got question marks. You know, A&M lost some bodies. They got to get guys to step up. But in the quarterback position, you feel like you're bringing back the same guy, which is rare in the SEC. LSU also bringing back their quarterback and some other talent. But LSU, the offensive line, they lost a ton of offensive linemen. And LSU went at it hard in the portal. So everybody's got stuff. Missouri, starting a new quarterback, other piece, lost Luther Burden, lost some other talented players on both sides of the ball. So it's not just South Carolina who's got to reload. Everybody's reloading now. It's a year-to-year deal. It truly is. So we'll see where it all goes. But interesting stuff from Josh Pate. Also, Brent Bielema won't go away, no matter how much we might want him to. The Illinois head coach has been making the rounds to the media, talked about, his thing with Shane last year in the bowl game, and they've talked and they're past it, and whether they'll just agree to disagree and move forward, and they have respect for each other and all that stuff. Bielema was talking about, basically, I guess the start off was about his issue with Shane Beamer, and Bielema then was talking about on having beefs with other coaches, in general. Here's cut 17 from the Illinois head coach, Brett Bielema.
What's the status of some of the beefs? Shane Beamer, have you talked to him?
Yeah, I actually called him. I'm very, I get caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
But that one was kind of more of just a little moment in the game. So I literally called him. There was later in January, we have a coaches convention, and I knew his dad was getting an award, so I probably knew he was going to be there. And I was going to try to make it to the event, couldn't do it. So I called him and had a conversation, and it was very, very cordial. So I think you got to get past those moments. That ended up being a rule change.
Yeah.
So probably in the good of the game, it was actually a good thing that it happened.
Yeah.
But, all the other stuff, when I'm pimping Lane, I wasn't really going at him. I was agreeing with him, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you should be in the playoffs.
Illinois should be talked about. Yeah, 3 losses. All right, what about Jim Harbaugh?
I have not talked to Jim.
Okay, that one's still...
But, I've never really had a problem with him, but it was just that moment, that scenario. Actually, his strength coach, Ben Herbert,
Yeah, we actually interviewed him last year.
Did he?
Incredibly impressive guy. Yeah.
Stares through your soul.
Yes.
Yeah,
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But when I got let go to Arkansas, Jim hired 4 of my strength coaches to Michigan, and that's kind of when they made their turn,
Yeah, yeah. All right.
I got respect. I love his family, love his dad. He's good people.
All right, so Brett Bielema, beef with Shane. Brett Bielema with a beef with Harbaugh. Brett Bielema, a beef with Kiffin. What's the one constant in all these? Oh, Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema's the one constant in all these. That's like that, and of course, Brett Bielema wouldn't see it that way because, again, you got to have some self-awareness. There's always that moment, like, at one point in my life, I said, let's see, I got all these exes, that didn't work out, that relationship didn't work out, that one. What's the one constant in all these relationships where there's a problem? Oh, it was me. That was the problem. That's Brett Bielema. Brett, you're the one constant in all these issues. So maybe it's a you deal, dude. Pretty funny with Brett Bielema. All right, we talk a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We will move forward, get our Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100 here on the halftime show. Kayla's taking over the controls, and so far we've stayed on the air. All with the training of Ed Bird. That's because he was drinking at 13 with his dad. All right, Kayla's running the show. Ed's here. Terry Ford, we're going till 3 with the halftime show on the game. Let's get a Firehouse Subtext the hour in here. 803-404-6100. I just saw this one, and it means nothing, but just it's funny. Just curious, how can I get as much vacation time as Bill Gunner? That one's funny. Also, let's see here. Another one, as we talk about South Carolina and the wide receiver room. The guy I like the most, to be quite honest, is Mazeo Bennett. Because I think Bennett can pop in year 2. I'm much more excited about Bennett than I am about Harbor, to be quite honest. Also very intrigued by Brown. I mean, look, Mazeo Bennett, there were times last year where Mazeo Bennett was very productive. And again, he's a freshman. There was inconsistency. I think there was a little minor injury issue in there as well with Bennett. They got cracked in the noggin. I shouldn't say minor. But Bennett is intriguing. There's a lot there to like about Mazeo Bennett. And what you hope for is all these guys take a step forward in their second year with the program. Look, Brown was really good at Coastal. But Brown, to be fair, is playing out of position. We've talked about this. Brown is now playing out wide at wide receiver. Brown made his bones at Coastal in the slot. But South Carolina's been playing Mazeo Bennett in the slot. Now, this year coming up, could they swap him? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not at practice. Also, when you look at Nick Harbor started to become a wide receiver in front of our eyes the last month of 2024. I mean, he started making plays. He was getting open with more regularity. He was starting to look more natural. And obviously, he spent the entire offseason being a football player. But, yeah, Mazeo Bennett, there's something very intriguing about Mazeo Bennett. And let's see what happens in year 2 in the program for Bennett as a sophomore. And look, Brown in his second year, if he's going to continue to play out wide, maybe Brown gets more comfortable out wide. We'll see. But interesting text. I appreciate that. 803-404-6100. One more football note. Again, it seems like we're riffing off the Pat McAfee show. Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show today, and he said he's pretty sure 2025 will be his final season. Quote from Rodgers, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. That's why we did just a one-year deal. And it's 1 year, $13.65 million, $10 million guaranteed. I don't think Aaron Rodgers needs the money. Just saying. But Aaron Rodgers, look, he wants to play another year. He's still got the itch to scratch. 2, not to be mean, but why would you want to end your career on that stink bomb time in New York? Why would you want to end your career on that? Now, Aaron Rodgers, is he part to blame for it? I mean, sure. I mean, obviously he got hurt. That wasn't his fault. He didn't run on the field going, how can I blow my Achilles? But Rodgers, just, again, it's not the way you want to end a Hall of Fame career. It's just not. And so you go to Pittsburgh, a team that is a quarterback away from being a solid playoff squad. Not saying Super Bowl contender, but playoff squad. And who knows once you get in the tournament. But even what Aaron Rodgers did at the end of last season, if Aaron Rodgers can be that quarterback for the Steelers, Pittsburgh is a playoff team, to me, easily. Defensively, they're good. Some guys are getting older on D, but they're still good. Offensive line, it's getting better. But they really need a quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers, the version of Aaron Rodgers we saw second half of last year, to be fair, is a bigger upgrade over, what Pittsburgh has run out there since Ben Roethlisberger got old. So if you're Aaron Rodgers and you can spend your last year playing for a squad, you can get into the postseason, you can have a solid year, and you can walk away from the game going, all right, that was good. My work here is done. But Aaron Rodgers has to buy in and be a team first guy and a leader. We'll see if Aaron at this point in his career is all in on that. All right, that was a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. What's trending at 2? We'll get back to hearing Lamont Paris, the USC men's basketball coach, talking to the media yesterday. We'll hear Lamont discuss development and Cam Scott coming up. right, halftime show, What's Trending at 2? Sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on The Game. We're hanging out. Appreciate you, whether you're on the 107.5 The Game app, you're watching our YouTube channel at The Game TV Radio, or, however you're listening. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. You could be listening in multiple places. You could be in Florence, in Myrtle Beach, Columbia, wherever. We thank you very much for hanging with us. Who knows where we'll be soon or at some point? You never know. All right, Lamont Paris talking to the media yesterday. We played a ton of this in the opening hour of the show, and we're going to circle back now at 2 o'clock. Lamont, let's start off with talking about development. One of the things last year was maybe like Cam Scott, for an example. We didn't see a lot of development for Cam Scott as the season went on. And some other players just didn't seem to develop into the roles I'm sure Lamont and the coaching staff were hoping they would grab onto. So let's go with cut 4, Lamont Paris just talking about development.
I mean, it's a challenge. But I think I'm on record probably saying this. This is my favorite part. My favorite part of this whole job is the relationships and the development of players. It's by far my favorite part of this job. So, well, where does that happen when you got a lot of teaching to do, and then you got a lot of new faces. You got 11 guys. So when it was flipped and you only had maybe 3 or 4 new guys, you taught pretty much the same things, and then there was a lot of carryover from the older guys teaching it to the younger guys. Now you have to do a lot of the teaching and a lot of the demonstrating to 11 new guys, and so it's a challenge, but it's a type of thing that I think if you're in this, the longer you're in this, you like that kind of thing. You like that kind of a challenge in teaching and guys that want to learn. And, there's so much learning that's going on already. You see guys locked into what you're saying and trying their hardest to do what they've been taught and be willing to fail and all that kind of stuff. So all that gets wrapped up into this whole thing that I call development. And to me, that's still a big part of what this job is, developing guys as players, developing them as humans, developing them as employees one day for somebody. So it's been challenging, but I've been looking forward to this. I've been waiting for this. These last couple of weeks couldn't have gotten here soon enough for me and for my staff. We really enjoy this part of it.
Yeah, that's the thing with the development. And I think it's interesting, Lamont's talking about not just players, but people and future employees for someone else and human beings and all that stuff. And that's, we laugh at that going, yeah, whatever, man. We just care about you winning games. We don't care about you developing young people. Come on. But that is part of the gig. The other thing is you got so many new guys. And the one challenge is not just developing them, but you have different motivators for everybody, right? You're laying out what you want for the team. And certain guys have to play certain roles and play a certain way. And, but every player is different. And the one thing that's changed about all this stuff is, and it goes into developing and motivating, is every player, you got to find the button on every player to see, okay, how do I get that dude to accomplish what I need that guy to accomplish so we can win games? And everybody's different. So that is a challenge when you have as many new faces as South Carolina does. But Lamont, to me, last year didn't work, right? And it's interesting to me what players Lamont retained and what players Lamont, maybe they didn't try to retain, or maybe those players didn't want to come back. But this roster got flipped upside down. Look, last year was terrible. Let's not sugarcoat. We're not putting lipstick on it. It was bad. Really bad. So just Lamont was like, all right, let's go grab a whole new crew and let's start over again in 2025. One of the guys who did come back was Cam Scott. Now, Cam Scott went to the portal. It felt like Cam Scott was going to leave, go find a new opportunity, maybe play in a new offense, was more well-suited to his skill set, whatever the case. Cam Scott's freshman year just did not work last season. Everyone thought Cam Scott would be better. The fans, I'm sure Lamont Paris, I'm sure Cam Scott. But all of a sudden, Cam Scott came back. Let's hear Lamont Paris. This is cut 12, Cale. Cam Scott, talking about Cam Scott withdrawing from the portal and coming back to South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, we just, we had a lot of conversations with him and his group. And, we're here to support and help and teach and believe. Obviously, we still have a lot of belief in Cam. It's a funny world that we live in. I talked to Nigel Hayes the day before yesterday, who was a really good player for us at Wisconsin. And in Nigel's same recruiting class, we had a guy by the name of Vito Brown, who hardly played at all as a freshman and as a sophomore. And then he was a starter for a Sweet 16 team as a junior, and he was a starter for a Sweet 16 team as a senior. And that was his path. And everyone's path is different. Everyone's timeline is different. So that's the only reason why we're asking this, is because there was some sort of ranking and there was an expectation that someone has of what Cam Scott should be able to do, right? And that's perpetuated by an article that someone writes, or an ESPN ranking, or whatever that does. And then there's real life. That's a day-to-day, okay, the ball got thrown in the air, and then what are you good at doing, and what do you need to learn how to do better? And that's where every young guy has to go through that, right? And where Colin Murray Boyles, it's a perfect example. I don't know what's Colin's rankings when he was ready right away. I mean, right away to impact winning. On a team that was experienced and really good. And some guys have more work to do. And so Cam's still trying to figure that out like any normal young person. A lot of young people have to do that. So his timeline is his timeline. When he's ready, he's ready.
Now, again, and Lamont's spot on with that. I mean, look, dudes, they progress and grow and develop at different rates, and it's the way it goes. Some guys take longer to pop than others. Some guys right away, boom. Sometimes a guy comes in and goes boom, and he never has another boom. He has one boom. But he never gets better from the get-go. He's, wow, the guy's really good, and he never gets any better. Some guys, it takes time to develop and learn and grow and prosper, and then they hit it and wow, look at that guy from year 2 to year 1. Or year 1 to year 2. So everybody's got their different path. And Cam Scott last year, I mean, you see in spurts, you saw the ability there, right? Whether it's physical ability, skill set, whatever, it's there. But how do you grow it and develop it and make it consistent to where Cam Scott can be a contributor consistently on an SEC Power 4 conference level? That's where you got to get. But the one thing when Lamont's talking about, well, this guy was put in here because this article rated him here and this guy rated him there. Remember, Lamont, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the line something like, if Cam Scott's not part of the all-freshman team of the SEC, I'll coach for free or give back my salary? So Lamont was part of kind of the hype train going into last year for Cam. We had Cam Scott on this radio station announce he was going to South Carolina. And that was a huge thing when Cam flipped from Texas to South Carolina. So, yeah, the hype train, yeah, you can say, well, one guy thought this and one guy thought that. A lot of people thought Cam Scott was going to have a hell of a freshman year, and it just didn't work. Not to say he can't have a hell of a sophomore year, though, because, again, guys grow and develop in different stages in different ways. So we'll see where it goes with Cam. All right, Lamont Paris, going to get one more in this segment here real fast. No, we'll hold it for the next segment. So breathe, Kale, we're good. We'll get one in the next segment. As we do What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Next segment, we'll hear about Mike Sheravance, another newcomer. A lot is expected of Mongolian Mike with this basketball team. We'll hear Lamont talk about him in the next segment. Real quick, though, as we do What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Tyrese Halliburton, of course, blew his Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals on Sunday night. Halliburton hit social media, and he says that on the social media post, did not regret playing through that calf strain, which led him obviously to tearing his Achilles. Remember, had the calf strain in Game 5, was not himself, got some rest, some rehab, played in Game 6, was productive in Game 6, the Indiana victory at home. Then Halliburton, after knocking down 3 threes in the first 7 minutes of Game 7, his Achilles went pop. But Halliburton said this, "I'd do it again and again after that, basically to win, for a chance to do something special." If I was Halliburton, I'd have played. Man, you never know if you're ever going to get back to the NBA Finals. You don't know. Again, Aaron Rodgers played in a Super Bowl early in his career, won a Super Bowl. Everybody's like, oh, wow, Aaron's going to win 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Never went back. Charles Barkley played in one NBA Final. You never know if you're going to get there. Dan Marino played in a Super Bowl early in his career, never got near a Super Bowl ever again. You never know when you're going to be there, so you know what? Bleep it. Go for it, man. I'd have dragged one leg up and down the court till they put me into the ambulance. Because you never, ever know if you're ever going to get that shot again. If you're Tyrese Halliburton, it's Game 7. You are 48 minutes away from possibly winning a championship. I am absolutely on that court. Hell, I want to borrow somebody else's Achilles. Can I use your Achilles? I'll give it back to you in 2.5 hours. I'm playing, baby. If anybody second guesses that, look, everybody's got their own opinion. Obviously, you don't get it. Most people are playing sports to win championships. Yeah, the money's great. Yeah, going to the Hall of Fame is phenomenal. All that stuff's great. But you play a sport to hoist a trophy and to get that ring. That's what most, from every level, from Little League Baseball, Pop Warner football, rec basketball, whatever you're playing, you're on a team, you're playing another team, you want to kick their tail. And you want to kick everybody's tail and have even if you're like in Little League and they gave you a championship ribbon. You got a championship, man. And so if I'm Tyrese Halliburton, I'm absolutely playing Game 7. And if my Achilles explodes, oh well, I'll do it again so I can win a championship. So Tyrese Halliburton talking to the media. Yeah, I agree with Halliburton 150 billion%. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Do not forget, Thursday, noon to 3, we are hanging at the Nest on Gadsden in the Vista. Not only can you do all sorts of wonderful things with your home at the Nest, whether you want to redo the kitchen with a lot of cool appliances like refrigerators, microwaves, dishwashers, all sorts of stuff. Maybe you need new fixtures, new lighting. Maybe a new bathroom with a tub. You can just sit there and chill and put TVs all over the bathroom and just watch sports. Whatever you want to do to your home, the Nest is the first stop. 70 years of experience in there. The showroom is phenomenal. We'll be there tomorrow, noon to 3. You can come check that out. Also, we'll be giving you a chance to win Gamecock football tickets and Gamecock Clemson football tickets as well. That is Thursday at the Nest. We'll be there. Tyler and I broadcasting live doing the halftime show. I will jump back in here. What's trending at 2? We will hear Lamont Paris talk about another one of his newcomers. That is next here on the halftime show on The Game. What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions, here on the Halftime Show. Kale punching the buttons, steering the ship. Ed Bird in there, I don't know, is he on some kind of weird, is he asleep? I thought he was on some weird social media platform, swiping left and swiping right. Don't tell the wife. So we're going till 3 here on the game. David Aaron off this week. He'll be back on Monday. Tyler will be back in here tomorrow because Tyler's been filling in for Bill on the early game. And yes, I love the text from last hour. I want to get as much vacation time as Bill Gunner. Me too. I agree. Chase. So what's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions here on the game. Lamont Paris talking to the media yesterday. Lamont, some good stuff from Coach Paris. Let's get to cut 7, Kale. Talk about one of the newcomers, Mike Sheravamps from Utah. Sheravamps came in out of the portal. Interesting skill set. If you look at his numbers, I'll go grab his numbers real quick from last season. Mike, or they call him Mongolian Mike, we found out. A little bit of everything last year at Utah. A little bit of everything. As I pull up his numbers and skimming and scanning back and forth here until we get to where we can find it. His numbers aren't going to wow you like in a big way, but he did a lot of things, like a jack-of-all-trades type of player. Last year at Utah, played 22 minutes a game. I mean, in Utah last year, by the way, nobody played over 30 minutes. They ran out a lot of dudes. Let's see, they had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players ran at least 14 minutes a game at Utah last year. Sheravamps, 7 points a game, 3 boards, roughly 3 assists. Shot 40% from the floor, about 31% from 3, 61% from the line. Again, none of that wows you because the numbers in totality don't look like big time, but he did a little bit of everything. Now, again, 3 assists a game, 3 rebounds a game, and this is in 22 minutes. So if you did this per 40 minutes, obviously the numbers look a lot better. He did have about almost average about a turnover and a half compared to, the 3 assists a game. So your assist to turnover is okay. But roughly about 40.6% from the floor. You'd love for that to get better. 31% from 3 is below average, and 61% from the line has to get better. If you look at Sheravamps, he took 117 threes out of 217 field goal attempts. That's over half his attempts from 3, where he was shooting 31%. Now, part of the problem could be he took too many threes. Because when you're below average from 3, you should be taking half your shots from 3. Let's just be real here. A higher percentage he made, obviously, inside the arc. So that dragged down not only his three-point shooting percentage, but his overall shooting percentage. So maybe it's shot selection could be an issue. But anyway, here's Lamont Paris talking about Mongolian Mike. Cut 7, Kale.
Yeah, Mike's feel for the game is it stands out amongst guys that have a good feel for the game. I mean, he's really, really skilled guy. His decision-making has been good. If you look at his assist numbers, he's always had good assist numbers. He sees the game through a very reliable lens, and that lens happens to be similar to the lens that I see the game through too, which is even why he's even a better fit for us. But he can do a lot of things. He can dribble the ball. We're going to explore some other things. Like, he hasn't really done a lot of scoring in the mid post. If you're watching the NBA, every offensive guy, whether it's Kyrie or Joel Embiid, does some sort of scoring in the mid post. Mike, with his size, just with his length relative to other guards, is going to potentially have the opportunity to do that. So we'll look at that. But he can come off ball screens and make reads. He can make all the reads, pocket passes, throw back to shooters, score for himself in those situations. So he'll be in a lot of situations. He'll be in a lot of situations where he's making decisions. And the more decision makers you can have, the good decision makers you can have on the floor at any one particular time, the better it is for your offense. And so, I anticipate at times being able to go back to, if you look 2 years ago, very basic stuff that we did, and then guys had to make decisions. And you had a lot of guys that could make decisions, a lot of guys. And so I think we're more suited to have guys that have shown that decision-making is a strength of theirs. And so my anticipation would be we'd be a little bit more like that. But Mike's such a versatile player, and he's also extremely talented.
All right, so Shar Vance is a 6'9" guard. Let's do a little deeper dive in his stats and let's break down some numbers a little bit. We said last year he took over half his shots from three and only shot 31% from three. Inside the three-point line, Mike shot 52% from the floor. So maybe what Lamont is saying is maybe more opportunities in the mid-post, and maybe if you break down the shot chart, obviously he's more effective inside the three-point line. So maybe that's part of the thinking of Lamont with Shar Vance, is that maybe he took too many threes last year. Maybe he needs to be more versatile in his shot selection inside the three-point arc. Now, 2 years ago, though, to be fair, Shar Vance shot 36% from three and took about the same amount of threes. So maybe last year his shot wasn't falling, or maybe, again, it goes back to maybe the shot selection was a little off. Maybe the year before that it was better, and he made more shots because he was taking better shots from three. But his first year, about 31.5% from three. So what is it? Or is he just a streaky guy from three? But a player who overall, shoots better, obviously, inside the three-point arc. But he is 6'9". He does play guard. That's a matchup problem for the opposition. And if you can, and in Lamont's point, if you can put him in matchup situations where, because of his size, and Lamont talks about his decision-making ability, then maybe you're setting up yourself either for Mike to score or to be able to make plays for others to score, because you're using his size as a matchup nightmare for the opposition. He's an interesting player is what I'm saying. If you look at his numbers don't wow you, but maybe it's the way Lamont wants to use him that will unlock this skill set of Mike Shar Vance. We'll see. But very interesting stuff there with Lamont talking about Mike. All right, Lamont had some more stuff to get to. We'll probably hit more of it tomorrow, but some interesting conversation with Lamont Paris yesterday about the men's basketball team. All right, what's trending at 2? That's sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Don't forget, the Game audio and video on-demand podcasting is sponsored by our buddies at Modern Exterminating. You can go to 1075thegame.com and hear our audio podcast, or go to our YouTube page at The Game TV Radio, and you can check out our video podcast in case you missed anything on demand. It's always there for you. Coming up, the greatest day in the history of the world, which is June 24th. That's next here on the Halftime Show. We go till 3 here on The Game. right, greatest day in the history of the world, June 24th. We always like to go old school a little bit. This day in this day in 1910, David Ayer graduated high school. I just had to do it. It was, why not? He's not here. We can play around. We'd do that if Dave was here. Anyway, this day in 1910, James Braid won his 5th British Open. You're like, who's he? Be honest with you, I didn't know till just now. James Braid was a Scottish golfer, born in 1870. Lived till he was 80. Won 5 British Opens in his career. Pretty good. And then, this is the interesting part of it. Now, you think about it, that a professional golfer would scale back playing tournament golf to become a full-time club professional. But that's what Braid did, because back then, obviously, the purses what they're, not like what they are today, obviously. He also started to design golf courses where you can make some dough. And, he was a guy who, again, back in those days, when playing golf on the tour or whatever, playing tournament golf, not the same in the early 1900s. So he kind of scaled back and started doing course design. He was a club pro, but he won 5 British Opens. Matter of fact, his 1906 victory at the Open Championship was the last successful defense of the title by a European until Padraig Harrington went back-to-back in 2008. So James Braid on this day won his 5th British Open. Also, this day in 1922, 2 things happened. The American Professional Football Association, remember them, right? Of course you don't. But you remember the National Football League. Because on this day in 1922, the American Professional Football Association renamed themselves the National Football League. 1922, one of the charter members, a football team called the Chicago Staleys, was renamed to be called the Chicago Bears by team founder, owner, and head coach George Halas. 1958, Brazil beat France 5-2 in a World Cup semifinal. Some dude named Pele, who was 17 years old, scored 3 straight goals. Run that one through your noggin. 17-year-old Pele in the World Cup semifinals scored 3 straight goals. There are people who got to watch Pele and say it's not even close. He was the greatest soccer player ever. And I don't know, it was before my time. But Pele, 17 years old on this day in 1958, scored 3 goals for Brazil as they beat France 5-2 in a World Cup semi. 1968, a very underrated great heavyweight champion, Joe Frazier, stopped Manuel Ramos in the 2nd round in Madison Square Garden in his first heavyweight boxing title defense. Of course, Frazier fought Muhammad Ali 3 times, beat Ali the first time at Madison Square Garden, lost the last 2. Frazier then tried to win the title back against George Foreman, and Foreman beat him like a drum. Knocked him down at least 5 times. It was like, at some point, you want to jump through the TV and stop George Foreman from beating up Joe Frazier. But Joe Frazier was a great heavyweight, but again, he was in that era of really a golden era of heavyweights with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and Ken Norton and Jimmy Young, and a lot of really good heavyweights through that time. 1979, some dude named Rickey Henderson made his debut for the Oakland A's and stole his first career base. And Rickey Henderson was phenomenal. Greatest leadoff hitter I've ever seen in my lifetime because, again, Wade Boggs was awesome. Wade Boggs got on base, hit for a high batting average. But Rickey Henderson walked, hit for... He wasn't Wade Boggs. Rickey Henderson wasn't winning batting titles. Rickey Henderson was a good, solid 280 hitter. Walked over 100 times, so his on-base percentage was filthy. Hit you a home run. Rickey had years where he hit 25-plus bombs. And Rickey also would steal a lot of bags. To me, just the greatest leadoff hitter I ever saw. 1980, there was a hockey team in Atlanta called the Atlanta Flames. Until this day. They relocated to Calgary, Alberta, and became the Calgary Flames. Atlanta's great for having hockey teams, and they go somewhere else. And that was one of the versions of the Atlanta NHL product that ended up in Calgary. This day in 1992, LSU center Shaquille O'Neal was the first pick overall by the Orlando Magic. And if you look, you're the Orlando Magic, but this is the NBA. This is the way the NBA goes. You're a small market team. You get Shaquille O'Neal. You have Shaq for a period of time. You go to the NBA Finals. You get whooped by Houston. Then all of a sudden, Shaq's going to want to move on to bigger, better places and make a lot of money in free agency. And what happens? He ends up a Laker. And Orlando got to the finals one other time with Dwight Howard. What happened? He went off for a lot more money. And that's the world when you're a middle or small market team in the NBA. Enjoy your time with these guys because typically they want to go off to make more dough than you can give them, and just a bigger profile and to build their brand, so to speak. This day in 1995, the New Jersey Devils beat the Detroit Red Wings 5-2 for a 4-0 sweep, and the Devils win their first Stanley Cup. 1998, we talk about Shaquille O'Neal being taken first overall in the NBA draft, and Shaq is obviously a Hall of Famer. On this day in 1998, the LA Clippers do what the LA Clippers do. They took Pacific Center Michael Olowokandi, number 1. You're like, who? Exactly. Michael Olowokandi was a gigantic bust. A gigantic bust. It was taken first overall on this day by the LA Clippers. On this day in 2000, Rick DiPietro, the first goalie drafted number 1 overall by the New York Islanders. Mike Milbury was the GM. Took DiPietro number 1 overall. DiPietro was an 18-year-old taken in that draft. And DiPietro, he signed a crazy contract with the Islanders. DiPietro had moments he was really good, but DiPietro had a problem with this thing called staying healthy. Matter of fact, DiPietro's nickname was Rickety. When your nickname is Rickety, it tells us that you missed a lot of time because of injury. Rickety is not something that's solid. You ever had anything rickety? It's not solid. That was Rick DiPietro's nickname. He was hurt so much. Rickety. This day in 2004, speaking of Dwight Howard, this day was taken number 1 overall by the Orlando Magic. And it's a shame. Dwight Howard was a physical freak. And for a good period of time in the NBA, Dwight Howard used his physical gifts, which were freakish, to be a heck of a player. But once those physical gifts started to go back down a little bit, the idea that Dwight Howard never really developed basketball skills, consistent basketball skills, his career went from wow to what happened. It felt like overnight. And then he's had some off-the-court stuff, if you've been reading in the last so many years. On this day, in 2010, one of the craziest tennis matches of all time happened at a major. John Isner and Nicholas Mahut played the longest match in tennis history. 980 points, 11 hours and 5 minutes over 3 days. Isner won the 5th set, 70 games to 68 games. It's just the longest tennis match ever, not major, just longest tennis match ever. It was so long, it was suspended by darkness twice, 2 nights in a row. The final tally was 6-4, 3-6, 6-7, 7-6, 70 to 68. That's ridiculous. On this day in 2010, John Wall from the University of Kentucky was taken number 1 overall in the NBA draft by the Wizards. Again, another guy, injuries ruined a heck of a career with John Wall. A record number of Kentucky teammates followed Wall. 4 more Wildcats were selected in the top 30 of that draft, making them the first school ever to put 5 players in the first round. Tons of talent from Kentucky at that point in time. DeMarcus Cousins, I do believe, was also part of that 2010 NBA draft. And I'm going to double check it right now because I'm not going to go off the top of my head for this one. But DeMarcus Cousins, John Wall, both from Kentucky. Cousins, of course, landed in Sacramento. Other Kentucky players going in that draft. Patrick Patterson in the first round of the Houston Rockets. Eric Bledsoe, who hung out in the NBA for a few minutes, more than that, really. Was a solid player for a while, 18th pick overall. And then the final Kentucky player taken, Daniel Orton, a 7-footer by the Orlando Magic, whose career never really went anywhere special. That's the 5 Kentucky players who were taken in the first round of that draft. So big day for Kentucky basketball. Just saying. All right, greatest day in the history of the world. We are done today, June 24th. Kind of cool day. And by the way, this day last year, the Florida Panthers won their first Stanley Cup championship. And, of course, they just won the Stanley Cup again this year, going back-to-back. And 64 people in the state of Florida really cared. Anyway, I'm playing. They had a sold-out arena. All right, we'll come back, do our handoff with our buddy Jay Phillips, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine, and get our final Firehouse sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100 halftime show. Terry Ford, Kale's here, Ed Bird. We got one more segment in this little shindig up until 3 on the game. Oh, it's time to our handoff. Little Pigs and Alpine. To Jay Phillips on the postgame show. Also, our Firehouse subtext, the hour 803-404-6100.
In 2.5 weeks.
Are you seeing fish in 2.5 weeks?
Yep.
Are you now?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Do they know you're coming?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
You talk to them?
Sure. Me and
You
Trey-
guys are tight,
me
right?
and Trey are like this.
Well, you've been to, 77 fish shows?
Ish. I don't know. I always tell people that. That sounds that about that.
Is that far and away the band you've seen the most? Is there anything close?
Yeah. No. Completely coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers 14 times each.
Really?
Yeah. But total coincidence.
Now, if Jerry Garcia wouldn't have passed along, would you have continued to go see the Grateful Dead?
Of course.
So really, when Jerry Garcia died, you were
Jerry
done.
died, when Jerry died, the Dead died.
Yeah,
I can't.
that's what I mean. If they
and
would've
I
kept-
don't go see them with John Mayer. I have friends that do. I love Bobby Weir, but I don't.
I was going to say, they didn't die. Maybe they died in your mind.
I have not gone to see them with John Mayer.
Can I be honest with you? I wouldn't watch John Mayer burp.
Right.
In public. Am I wrong? Am I just a hater?
He's an amazing
Guitar player. Uh-huh.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
But he's also a tool.
Oh, I've heard that too. I've read that and heard that.
And really,
yeah.
So anyway,
I've
if you
read
like,
and heard that.
John Mayer, that's
to be
great.
fair.
If you like John Mayer, that's
fine.
great.
I've heard that stuff too. I have friends of mine in music radio who have dealt with him, and I have not heard good stories.
Yeah. So
I'll just leave it at that.
But
I'll leave it there.
Anyway.
By the way, one of the Firehouse subtexts the hour from earlier. Just curious, how can I get as much vacation time as Bill Gunner?
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Anyway.
Somebody asked me start, bench, drop when we started doing this, Elijah and me, a couple weeks ago. Start, bench, drop, dead fish and almonds.
Mm-hmm.
And I've yet to respond. I can't.
You can't.
I'm not doing that.
You can't do that.
I'm not doing that. Sorry.
I would say there's
and
no
I know
way
we say like
you
they're
can
really
do
hard
it.
and you have to drop somebody. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
No, there's no way Jay Phillips could actually pull that.
I honestly tried. I was like, well, I could, no. And I was like, well, I could fight. No, I can't. I decided I can't.
You know, honestly, for me, out of those three, and again, I'm nowhere near a fan of Fish or the Dead the way you are. Yeah. I like the Allman Brothers, so I'd probably start the Allman Brothers.
That's fine. And a lot of people around here would. Goes back to our guy who said they're not a jam band, they're Southern rock. I'm like, well, they're both, but that's cool, man.
That 3-hour fight you had with that guy, was it Twitter? Was it Twitter that day? It was so. I think it was Twitter. Yeah, it was one of those. You went.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget the look on your face was so funny. I'm like, what's wrong? This guy, and you were like all in on the battle.
I know I always get fired up. This guy that did it, he has the Allman Brothers' greatest hits, and that's it. That's it. which is a fine collection of music. Don't get me wrong.
But it is not.
I guarantee you, this dude never saw them live,
and he probably never heard a live album.
Never has any of their live albums, and doesn't have any of their regular.
Has no idea just what that they do.
He's probably like, I love rambling, man.
Hear the 37-minute version of it at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
I can't start, bench, drop down.
Did you have you heard this Oklahoma City stuff with these young guys who don't know how to celebrate with the champagne and the booze and the alcohol?
I saw the one. Well, I saw a clip, and I guess the guy had a can of like Ultra, like one of those bottle
cans. It was Chet Holmgren, and he said,
it wasn't Holmgren.
Oh, wasn't Holmgren. Yeah, he's 7'9".
He's 9 feet tall.
Right.
But it was somebody else, and he had goggles, but he was like taking a sip out of the Ultra can. Sorry, I'm not talking my microphone. And he was like, and I was like,
made the
man,
face.
I made that face when I was like 5, and my granddad let me have a sip of PBR.
Right. That's the funniest part. We were talking about this earlier because we were joking about some of those guys had never tasted beer until that celebration. Chet Holmgren called Michelob Michelin or something.
Right.
Jalen Williams did an interview after the partying, saying it's the first time he ever drank, and beer tasted disgusting, and he didn't like. He drank something, took some shots or something. He says he's never going to drink again. And they left like they only opened 8 bottles of champagne.
Out of what, like case?
Billions,
case
right?
Case?
And so basically, these guys just aren't partiers, right? And a lot of them never had tried booze. So we were just joking in here about, Ed Bird drank beer at 9 with his dad. Cale's first shot was when he was in college and went off of someplace. A girl threw up on his feet and people were shooting guns. My first one was behind Skateland.
You went to Carolina. Where the hell? Where was this?
He went to some other party at another place.
Okay.
He doesn't want to name it, which I agree with him. Mine was behind Skateland at 14, drinking Boone's Farm. What was your first?
Oh, God. I probably at the beach somewhere, but I have to go back and remember. I probably can't.
Post-game show coming up with Jay and Elijah.